So jung wie heute Abend werden wir morgen früh nicht mehr gewesen sein. Das ist eine traurige oder vielleicht auch eine tröstliche Wahrheit, je nachdem. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. Once again, I would like to welcome all of you to a very interesting event organized by the Swiss Institute of International Studies at Zurich University. We are more than delighted that so many of you are here attending, which of course also means a tribute to our guests on the podium. We would therefore also like to extend a special welcome to the author and queen of crime, Donna Leon. Don't hide, you will be here in the center of attention 1 second more. And then, of course, the Dean of Columbia University School of Public Health, Linda Fried. The Chair of Geriatrics and Ageing Research at UCH, Heike Bischoff-Ferrari. She has actually a huge fan club. And last but not least, the entrepreneur and strategy consultant, Urs Zeltner. Thank you all for being here. It's a fantastic opportunity to discuss a very important topic. We are really honored. Yeah, age, health, joie de vivre, and much more. Over the next hour, we want to discuss this in this high competent group and, of course, take home hopefully a few insider tips on how we can age even more wisely, better, more beautifully, and more happily, as long as science has not yet discovered eternal life, which, by the way, would probably not be particularly desirable. The fact is that many people today, especially those in affluent Western societies, are not only living longer, but also living better for longer. However, this does not come out of thin air. The right lifestyle, as we know, supported by medicine and psychological counseling, contributes a great deal to this success. We all know the keywords: diet, exercise, mental activities, mental balance, plus curiosity, and the joy, of course, of constantly approaching others and other things in new ways. Sounds good, no? And not to be underestimated, active interaction with music, art, literature, history. In short, with the fine arts, which, as we all know, open up new horizons for us time and again. So it's also about motivation, about confidence, about ourselves in interaction with others and other things. In this respect, our panel is not only focused on scientific data and facts, but also on the so-called soft factors. In other words, it is also about what we have, at least partially, in our own hands. Genetics and physical dispositions are one thing. Our willingness to shape our lives in a self-determined way is the other. Even if, as we must remember, not to forget, this other aspect is still primarily a privilege of affluent societies. We therefore discuss freely and with plenty room for improvisation about 35 minutes, ladies and gentlemen, and then you have the opportunity to ask your questions, and I think it's a unique opportunity to ask questions. Please seize the opportunity. And now we go into medias res. Thank you. No.
Yes. Hello, I'm Linda.
Nice meeting you, Linda.
Pleasure.
Please, the ladies first.
Also, you sit here. We have assigned seats.
Oh, you have?
So we are all settled. It's very cozy. The light here is heartwarming, and I think that's absolutely perfect for our topic because we want to learn something. And my first question goes to the Queen of Crime, Donna Leon. Hello. Dear. Look, I am always surprised how prolific you are, how creative, intelligent you are. You are a hard worker, but you do not seem to look like a hard worker. So what is actually your secret to be so strong going on?
I don't think it's a secret. I work a lot, but most people work a lot as well. I like very much what I do, and I think that makes work, it puts work in a different category. Work becomes fun. So if I spend 5, 4, 3, 2, 8 hours a day, and it's fun, I'm, in a sense, doing what we're supposed to do, which is have fun, and it will extend your good health, maybe. So I think it's having the good fortune to have a work which I enjoy very, very much.
I think this is a very important point. I mean, if you like your work, then you're totally differently motivated than you're forced to do hard work. However, I mean, the answer is for me a little bit too easy because, I mean, writing books, and especially detective novels, which can be very, very complicated, I tell you, needs, of course, a lot of brain work. So do you have special vitamins, or do you have special exercises, or how does that work? Everybody wants to write books, but most do not succeed.
I disagree only with one point, that the books are complicated. If you think about it, a crime story can be, and many of them are, formulaic. Even the good ones share in the same formula. Something bad happens. Usually in the beginning of a book, something bad happens. I sometimes, when I'm asked about crime writing, I say, many English mystery novels begin with, on the morning of March 15th, newly retired Chief Inspector Ferguson said to his loyal dog, Pup, "Hey, Pup, let's go for a walk in the woods." And you know that the first thing Pup is going to be chewing on is somebody's hand. Because it is formulaic. You have an attention-getting opening, bang, and then the rest of the book is spent trying to figure out why that bang happened, why someone was killed or assaulted, or why a building was burned down. The difference, I think, is between a crime writer and a writer of fiction is that the crime writer already has a map. There have been 18 million maps drawn of these plots. But when Jane Austen says, when she describes the carriage that comes into town in the morning, nobody knows where that book is going to go. It could go there, it could go there, it could go there, but it's Jane Austen, so it goes to all of those places. Because she didn't have a map. She didn't need a map.
No, she didn't. But actually, once you told me, I'm in chapter I don't know, 25 or 26, and there's a guy, I don't like him especially, but okay, he has a right to live. I'm not sure if I should let him be killed or not. So this is special, you know, you have the power as a crime writer to decide whom you kill.
Yeah.
Huh? That's not exactly longevity.
But it's not that the person is dying, it's not that Joe Smith is dying or being killed. It's that at this point, something has to create some tension in the book. You need tension in the book, and what's better than a murder? So it's time for somebody to die.
And cliffhangers.
Excuse me?
Cliffhangers.
No, I don't do cliffhangers. I like a book to end
Straight.
with some sort of
Straight.
solution. Something is resolved. And I think most of mine do. Or don't.
Absolutely. You have later the opportunity to ask more questions to Donna. I would like Linda to know what longevity actually means. Now, this is a notion which was not on the table maybe 10 years ago or so. All of a sudden, everybody speaks about longevity, and I had to learn the word also and the notion and what it could possibly mean. So could you explain it in a, at the same time, scientific, but also so-called familiar way to the audience, what it actually means and what, how we could develop it even better? Longevity.
I will try. Good evening. Very good to be with all of you. So what's longevity? Well, we are living longevity because that has to do with the length of our lives, which over the last 100 years has increased by 30 to 40 years. Life expectancy at birth 100 years ago was in the low 40s. Even in 1900 in the US, life expectancy was 47. You could expect at birth to live 47 years on average. And now it's 77. In 2050, half of Europeans will be over the age of 50. So half of Europeans will be over the length of life that was expected 100 years ago. That's one simple way to say what longevity is, that we are living lives that are 30 or 40 and sometimes even more years longer than was possible 50 and 100 years ago. Now, there are many, probably many dimensions of longevity besides that count. Longevity also has to do not just with the length of our lives, but the length of the health in our lives and the kinds of expectations we have for what living longer might mean for individuals as well as for society. And in fact, I have come to think about this longevity thing as not just a demographic transition in society, that so many more people are living longer, that we actually have an increasing proportion of us, of the population that's older. But it's actually a demographic revolution. That's how I've come to think about this. If you think that we are approaching 20, 30, and in some societies like Japan, even Italy, 40% of the population is over the age of 60 in the next few years. That is a radical transformation in the composition of a society. So that's another dimension of what we're talking about when we're talking about longevity. Many, many dimensions. And how we handle that, certainly individually, as you were saying, but how we actually seize this and find the opportunities in it, which are tremendous, will determine what this all turns out to mean for us.
Can you give us some examples of these opportunities?
I do.
Please.
So one opportunity is the opportunity to, which we're not in most places accomplishing, which is to not only have longer lives, but longer healthy lives. We're not accomplishing that. There are segments of wealthier societies where people are demonstrating that it's possible to live long lives with health. We didn't know that 20 years ago, so that's newly found information. And the people who are demonstrating that are people with more education, who have had good access to medical care, have lived in health-producing, healthful environments, who have had access to stimulating jobs and engagement. In those conditions, it turns out, along with good health behaviors, you can live a long life with health. But most people are not experiencing that. We have not figured out how to democratize those elements to enable most people to live long lives with health, but it's possible. The other opportunity is actually what it means, what we're learning scientifically about the opportunities of living these extra 30 years. I think there are two myths that have been are being disproven. One myth is that prevention of ill health doesn't work when you get older, and that myth has been debunked. Actually, there are three myths.
Okay.
The second myth is that if people stay engaged and, for example, working in older age, that takes jobs away from young people. False.
False.
In fact, you get more jobs for young people because of the stronger economy, and young people and old people don't compete for the same jobs. The third myth is that there's nothing left when you get older. You have actually no creativity, no enjoyment. It's all about the 60s, disease, disability, dementia, decrepitude, decline, and death.
Sounds horrible, by the way.
It sounds
yes.
bad.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out that we actually get better with age. At least that's what the science says. Not everybody, it's not guaranteed, but actually we accrue not just expertise, which of a lifetime, it doesn't go away when we turn a certain number. We accrue subjective life experience. We learn how to put those together into a very compelling package, which enables people as they get older to be really outstandingly good problem solvers, with the ability to take very complex, even wicked problems, if they think they matter, and tackle them and break them down into their actionable parts and solve them. And then people get nicer as they get older.
With the exception of old white men, this is absolutely true.
So contrary to public opinion, people become more generous toward others and more generative. So with a desire to leave the world better than they found it, which you could even think about a legacy. So that's what we haven't done, is recognize that package, which, if we thought about it, is immensely powerful. That's a kind of potential social capital this world has never seen before in a package. And if you think that 20 or 30 or 40% of the population, not everybody, but has the potential for that combination of attributes, what could that mean for our ability to create equitable, just, compassionate, and interesting societies with new kinds of creativity potential we never saw before? I think that's quite optimistic.
That's very optimistic, sounds good, and I think the audience is already satisfied with this answer. But however, I mean, this is also partly at least a Western model, where it works much better than in other societies which live under very poor conditions. So it's not very difficult to export that over the whole world, I would say. But before we go more also in some scientific questions like about what is the role of genetics compared to aging, and so I would like to know your personal schedule dealing with longevity. Maybe you can describe in short words how your day looks when you start at 5 o'clock to get into gear and work. How does that work?
How does that work?
Yes.
Not too badly.
We can see that.
How does it work? I don't know. I'm perhaps a little like Donna. For me, I love what I do. And that makes all the difference in the world.
Are you a morning bird
I am.
and a night owl?
No.
Okay, so one or the other. Some are both,
For
but
me,
this
yes.
is rare.
I have to choose. Yeah.
Sports, diet,
Yes, all of that.
what else?
Walking.
Walking is
Lots
good.
of walking.
No jogging, bad for the joints.
Very bad.
Okay,
Yeah.
you heard that. Bad for the joints. Stop
Bad for
jogging.
my joints.
Biking?
Yes.
No. Really? Also very bad for the traffic. Okay.
Yeah.
You are a prolific biker.
So I think very important is meaning and purpose. I think that is at the core of health and well-being as you get older. Meaning, purpose, and meaningful connection with others. And that actually is, some people are better at it than others, but in general, as you get older, that's where there are tremendous barriers that in a new world of longer lives, for most people, we need to tackle them.
Meaning is very important. I would like to ask Heike, there are two sides at least of meaning. Meaning to yourself, but also meaning to others. So it's again about recognition, it's self-recognition. You can generate that in your own way. For instance, when you are a writer and during the night you write your novels, you feel good, hopefully, but then they have to be read. And this is the other side of the recognition. The public or whatever people you give you the motivation that you do a good job or that your life has a meaning, Heike. So how do you deal with this, I would say, mostly psychological factors in respect to longevity?
I do believe that having a purpose and contributing to society and having connections with others and producing something that is meaningful is really key to healthy longevity. And as geriatricians, we see that, how important it is that people have a meaning in life. I have a very simple example from our studies. We did this study years ago in hip fracture patients, and so the average age was 84. They came to the hospital and we measured their function. And then we looked at their recovery at 6 and 12 months, and we asked them a simple question: do you care for an animal, for a plant or a garden, or another human being? Mm-hmm. And it was very interesting. So people who cared for a garden were the quickest in recovery after 6 months, and after 12 months it was caring for another human being or an animal. And this was independent of their baseline function when they came into the hospital. So you really see how key it is to be motivated for a goal. And I think it's also how you feel about stress. If you enjoy something, you're so much better in what you're doing. And I always ask this question to people when I meet them. You know, what is driving you? And exactly. Especially if people so we are in another world when we are in geriatrics. So for me, people age 70 are teenagers. Age 80, a little bit more mature. And so I ask these people in their teenage years, maybe late teenage years, you know, what is driving them. And often it is really having, you know, seeing the life that's around you, you know, living right now. I have one example. Donna already knows the example. I was very lucky to meet Roger Grover, Deep Purple.
Who is that?
And
A rock musician.
Is this a band leader or?
actually, Donna and I have breakfast with him tomorrow.
Can you tell me who he is?
Deep Purple. Smoke on the Water, Fire in the Sky.
Doesn't ring a bell, sorry.
1971, Montreux.
I'm with Beethoven and Mozart.
Okay, he is a rock star. You know,
Like
he really
Sting.
is. He's a rock star, and he was on stage so many times in his life. And I asked him, "What is it? How do you feel when you are on stage?" And he said, "I'm honored. I'm honored to be on stage." And I asked them, I mean, this is so hard to be touring at age 78, you know, every other day somewhere else in a hotel. Where do you take the energy? And the answer was, I'm having fun. I mean, that's what Donna said, that's what Linda said. And you know, the older my motivation in getting to know people is they have to be fun. Everything else is too boring.
Well,
I agree.
I think everybody would agree with that, but not everybody has the opportunity to be a famous band leader and perform on stages with 200,000 people. You know, normally people work in the office, they wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, it's cold outside, they have to go to the S-Bahn, then the S-Bahn is full, then they are in the office is grey and grim, then you have to fight your enemies, then you have a bad lunch, then you go back in the S-Bahn, the S-Bahn is grim, the whole thing starts again, and at home your wife says, "Did you buy the carrots? Oh my God, I forgot." So where is the motivation for such poor people?
Yep. So I always also ask my patients, you know, what they think the true meaning of life is and what is really the center of a good life. And most of them say it's the little things.
The little things.
The little things. Like, you know, being thankful for a partner who's sticking with you through thick and thin, enjoy a meal together, being together, meeting other people, that enjoying a concert, you know, buying flowers, things like that. And you know, in the end, it's you know, the whole concept of mindfulness. You know, enjoying where you are and taking the opportunities. We are very lucky today. I said it before. It's a little bit like, you know, history in this room.
Oh yeah, more than. Winston Churchill gave here his famous speech, "Let Europe arise," and there is the plaquette which memorizes this speech. This is an extraordinary room with extraordinary guests as you tonight. Urs, do you buy flowers for your wife every day?
Why do I get this question?
There's no free meal.
Lie.
You know the answer, no. And I keep getting all those complaints most of us men get.
Okay, so you're also,
But I promise to do better.
you're also
Starting
victim.
tomorrow.
This is the other aspect of the whole thing. You know, the victimization of well, certain people like us, and how we get out of that. But in general, you're dealing with these topics, and what fascinates you about health and longevity, and how did you come to this project, which you support in a very generous way?
To the first question, the topic is very new to me. I have learned to spell the term longevity 18 months ago.
That's not so easy, huh?
It's not easy, and to understand it is even worse.
Yeah.
As I have not come across a definition of what longevity means.
But Linda just explained
Almost everything can be included into it, and that's to me quite exciting.
Right.
And the second one, why I'm so excited, I just said it. No, I think that the topic really is that everyone somehow can find its place in defining what longevity means to yourself. And that is itself a good way to address the topic as we heard it, right? How to live your life, how to make it meaningful. And I think that is enough purpose to be interested in the topic. But in my view, I think one has to find its place. Define for yourself what you take out of this topic. To me, it is a huge positive tsunami coming across the world that has just begun.
It's a new one, more or less, yes. Yeah. Yes, and we have to work on that because, as you said, longevity is not a notion which is familiar with most people. It's still somehow a science of not secrets, but of special interests and how you cope with them. Another question which is always connected to this topic is how strong do genetics work with how long and in which way we live? Who wants to answer that?
Everybody's looking at me, so
I can do it, but
well,
you
let's
start.
see if we agree.
You start, yes.
So I'm also a geriatrician and a scientist. And I would say that contrary to our expectation, about 10% of our health is due to our genetic makeup and about 90% due to our life experiences, all the things that I described before, how we are able to care for ourselves, what kind of a nurturing environment we're in, what kind of a healthful environment we're in, how much education we've had, the deprivations of poverty, all of those things shape about 90% of our health and much of our longevity.
But this is an enormous difference between 10 and 90. I mean, I also heard
is.
other voices, and 10 years ago it was more or less, standard or something like that they say at least 50% is genetics and the rest for better or for worse. Has this completely turned, and why?
That's what we were expecting. We were expecting that things were foreseen and a given. Do you want to add to what I said?
No, I agree with the numbers that Linda gave. This is really very good news. When I still started in medicine, it was all about genes, and it was so detrimental, thinking about you are born with this and then you have to accept certain diseases. But now we know that even for dementia, the breakthrough of your genetic risk is very highly determined by our lifestyle and our environment. And I think this is really, as Linda said before, this is the news we have today, and that we can really empower, with these messages, people to address their own way how they age and how they can reduce their disease risk. And this is really the topic of the future. That's medicine version 2.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but this also includes, of course, healthy food, for instance, and how you deal with the dish on the table. Can you give us some tips and hints on that? What's the easiest way without pain to eat, have fun with a meal?
To have what?
Fun with a meal. Normally,
fun with a meal.
Healthy food is not very tasty, no? I don't know.
So the creator of the Mediterranean diet, Antonia Tricopolo, she says that the Mediterranean diet is a lifestyle. and that brings in the food. It's and the fun. I mean, so the idea is that you buy the foods yourself. You walk home, physical activity before you make choices, and then you prepare a meal. And you enjoy that meal with family or friends.
Sounds a little bit romantic, no?
Well, that's really actually comprising a healthy aging concept, because you address the topic of isolation, loneliness. You really make food the center of a family, of friendship, and you know, and then of course it's the topic, what does it mean, Mediterranean diet, in the sense of, you know, the benefits that we see in studies. And it's not pizza, pasta. It really is, you know, lots of vegetables, olive oil as a source of fat, healthy proteins. So
meat.
Unfortunately, little red meat or non-red meat. Fish or white meat, and that can be extremely tasty.
Okay, if you cook it well, yes. Donna, you are always interested in cooking, and you wrote a wonderful cookbook. Tell me a little bit about your habits in the kitchen, for instance. And we shared this experience once or twice in your house in Santa Maria. It was very, very funny and very cozy, and really I learned a lot. I forgot also a lot, but we have to redo that. So, and besides, if you know all of course you have read Brunetti novels, and the kitchen is also a very important location there. By the way, there was till now, I think, never a murder in the kitchen, but could be still a topic. So what is your relationship to healthy food and healthy nutrition and healthy cooking?
I would like to make one observation. People often ask about how is it that she teaches all day, she's a university professor, she comes home and she prepares these gorgeous meals. The first is easily answered by the addition of an adjective. She's a professor in an Italian university. And so there's a certain leggerezza about the amount of time one spends in class or in the office. And the other is that in the books, many people get, in a sense, suckered into believing that there are lavish displays. There's just, remember Carmen Miranda? How many of you remember Carmen Miranda? The Brazilian bombshell dancer who used to have the tiara, the headdress of live fruit. She'd have not potatoes. She'd have mangoes, and nobody remembers. That's your homework tonight. Check Carmen Miranda.
Google her.
Google her. The perception on the part of many readers is that the meals are these Saturnalian festival, let's eat everything we can. And if you look at the text, there's very little said about food. There's very little description of what they are eating. What they are eating is named. But what people are reading into these seeds, I believe, is that this is the family meal with which most of us grew up.
They imitate
Mama
it in a way.
bear, Papa bear, and two baby bears having their dinner together, talking, being affectionate with one another, complimenting the cook. It's peaceful. It's a no-war zone. And I think that what people see there is the words naming the food, and then the reader supplies the contentment of the meal, of the experience of dining together. My experience in the kitchen, I think, is that of someone who doesn't cook a lot, because I'm often out to dinner, but since most of my friends are Italian, that's taken care of, because food is sacred, and I profit from that. And I can cook pasta, and I can cook risotto, and
it's already good,
vegetables.
no? I mean, can be absolutely wonderful and tasty, and a good risotto, by the way, is not so easy to do. I tell you. So, okay, I mean, in this way, living together, as Roland Barthes once said, is very important. Sharing common experiences, also a sort of atmosphere and all that. But this is also, of course, if I perceive it properly, an Italian sort of lifestyle. There are other lifestyles where it does not work like this. For instance, probably in England, when they rush to the office and then they have fish and chips and they're already poisoned and then they have to go back to the S-Bahn and so. I mean, this is also a completely different rhythm. So how could we promote, as we are constantly promoting longevity for more people, also a different approach to cooking and to food against fast food and TV food and S-Bahn food and all these kind of stuffs?
I live over there.
Right.
And I come here on the number 5 tram.
Oh.
And there's an hour at around, the hour starts at 11 and ends at 1. When the kids get out of school, there must be many schools along that line because they're always down at Bellevue getting on, masses of them. And very often they are eating, and they are not eating. I say this in difference of opinion about the Italians being the ones, or blaming people who eat junk food, or assuming that junk food is eaten everywhere. These kids are eating themselves to death. If you look at what they are eating, and I do, and smell it, you can smell it in the tram. And so I think the miasma of junk food is very well established, not only in other places, but here in this society. And I think the basis of that is financial.
Urs, do you have a recipe against junk food?
I don't eat it. I don't like it. I rather jump lunch and have a dinner at home, cooked by my wife or self-cooked or together. But no, I'm not the fast fooder. I never liked it, even though I used to live in the US, but no.
It's a different approach. Actually, what's fascinating also, speaking of entrepreneurship and investments in longevity, you know, there's this huge industry growing, all the different things you have to do or you can do, and persuade people to live healthy in this and this and this respect. So it's a huge market. Mm-hmm. Where do you see the most interesting, the most energetic fields of this market?
I think there is no specific asset.
Speak slowly, I want to write down the answer.
Oh, please.
I'm worried about my future.
There is no specific asset you can call this is longevity. Mm. I don't think there is an asset class, as bankers talk about diverse asset classes. I would think it is a similar reflection a person, an investor, has whether he or she invests in real estate or in Coca-Cola or in another asset class. It's about judging what opportunity do I expect with this very investment? What risk do I take? Do I believe in a company, in an idea, or not? And the same, and that is how I bridge back to my initial statement, you know, this tsunami. Make your pick. Define for yourself what is longevity. Is this the pill I believe that cures my skin? Then I'm sure you find yourself the right brand for it, or you go to your banker and ask for support. You will find it and you do it, and you will believe in that as you have to believe in any other investment. You have to believe.
And this is you.
Yeah, I think you can. There is many opportunities. There is specialists. There is funds that carry the name of longevity. Please be careful. Read the fine lines. Look what's in there. There's specialized banks, mostly private banks, that are truly specializing in it. They hire specialists that are trained medical doctors. They have a view on what's in that package and let you guide into that. Another example, you find longevity investment opportunities with big banks. If you look into it, you can find out that in their view, longevity is that they believe in this demographic change, that we will have much more elderly people, and that those elderly people will have to live longer, and therefore we better invest in assets that keep a return for longer, right? And that has, in my view, not much to do with longevity. It's just a twisting of a turn. That is my warning, and that is why I think make up your own mind, pick your asset, and then get the advice.
This is a very healthy warning. And we also could actually talk about the topic of the longevity of banks. And it's also not always so promising as we would have wished. I have another question besides, ladies and gentlemen, the topic is totally fascinating. We were just scratching the surface. Demographic problems and institutional problems and the problems of hospitals and care for older people, etc., etc. It's endless. We could do a seminar, which actually our friends did today and this afternoon, and it was obviously totally fascinating. So one thing is, of course, the relationship between life and the death. John Maynard Keynes said, in the long run, we are all deaths until we have eternal life. This will take time a little bit. But so the will to live and maybe the acceptance of death is a philosophical problem. But before we can maybe treat that topic as the last one in this round, it could also be actually that there is maybe a contradiction between longevity and a happy life. Namely, so if you have longevity engraved over your bed, you have to behave properly. You don't exaggerate, you don't do silly sports, etc., etc. You do the proper food.
That's not true.
But maybe there are some people who are not very happy with that. So recently there was articles in the papers, longevity, health, etc. 1 glass of red wine is already deadly. So what should we do? Should we refrain from that and be sour for the rest of our lives? Or should we say, okay, 4 glasses of red wine are healthy for me, and if it's not true, goodbye world. Linda.
I was afraid you were going to give that to me, yeah.
It's on the table, no? It's on the table.
As somebody who also likes red wine, I would say that we need to make an educated decision about what the right balances are. And put all of those together into a package. Nobody said that longer lives have to be miserable. I don't think that's the conclusion we have to draw here, but we have to assess personal risks and what matters to us, ideally in some moderation, because it's very clear that excesses in general carry some risks with them, so you have to decide what you're going to do with that. But the other part of this, of course, is that it's not all up to the individual what the risks are. There's very clear evidence that the opportunities for health and healthy longevity and meaningful lives are very much ones that are constructed by how we design society going forward to be one for longer lives. For health and longer lives, and for the meaning in longer lives. And those will be societally constructed, I believe, depending upon whether we believe there are opportunities there. If we, and we're somewhat at a fork in the road, I would say, not just in the West, Japan, Korea, Singapore, see that also very, very much. If we decide there are no opportunities there, that suggests one set of policies. If we decide there are opportunities, not to pretend that we get immortality, that's not really what we're talking about, but the meaning, purpose, engagement, pleasure, and value for all ages of designing a society for longer lives, I think has huge opportunity.
Do you think that the governments or the state should regulate the behavior of the population towards longevity?
I can't imagine that regulating behavior has a high return on investment, but how we design society to make healthy choices the easy choice, very much so. So if healthy food is affordable, if healthy food is accessible, if people have the time to sit and have a meal with others because of the way their jobs permit it, then you make choices easy ones for the healthy things.
But Heike, you are also favoring the more the individual approach and responsibility than this, the bureaucracy of the state, which is anyway growing and growing like hell, tells now everybody what to eat and if he has done the right thing or not, or he gets a fee or higher taxes.
I don't think it's the right way forward to force people, but to find motivational strategies to help people. And I think one part is really educating people and show them what effects are possible if they make small changes in several lifestyle factors on their own aging process and on their risk of disease. And Linda, which is really, again, a total honor that she's here, really laid the ground in science to look into the aging process. Linda Fried's research is on how we measure frailty as opposed to just age, and that was really the stepping stone to look further into the aging process. And we have new ways to measure the biology of aging. This is an evolving field that will allow us to help people make prevention a treatment. So it is very unattractive as doctors if we tell people exercise and eat healthy, and in 10 years your risk of stroke will be lower. A lot of people will not make changes based on this long-term goal. But if you give people a personalized program, making several small changes, all of what Linda mentioned, and tell them we can measure in 6 or 12 months to see whether your biological clock or biological age slowed. This is very attractive. And current science is all about defining which markers can we choose to make that possible. And that would motivate people a lot. And I also think it's a magic in helping people to make small changes and stay with them, healthy habit formation. And I know you didn't get your answer on the red wine sufficiently.
I didn't forget that.
I can make a statement to
Please
that.
do. There are some people in the room who cannot wait till you have your statement.
So, there is really, I mean, the Harvard cohort consistently report that moderate alcohol intake is protective. But moderate means a glass of wine for women and 2 for men. It's all about moderation. And as Linda said, it's a package. you know, it's also how you do the rest of lifestyle. You know, do you move? Do you eat healthy? And are you mindful? Do you enjoy life? Do you get enough sleep? You know, all of these things matter in combination. And the worst thing you can do for healthy longevity is to have no fun and joy in life, be lonely. That's the worst. That's worse, we know, than 16 cigarettes a day, than being overweight, than having 6 drinks of alcohol a day, or being immobile. And I think, Linda, you probably agree, this is a big topic.
Yeah.
That's the path to death. Okay, ladies and gentlemen.
That's crazy.
It's the truth and nothing but the truth. So, ladies and gentlemen, you have the opportunity for about 20 minutes to ask your questions or contribute stories from your own life. A lady over there, please. We have some microphones.
Thank you, really interesting panel. So recently I attended a presentation at Stanford University about a vegan diet. And there might be some studies, or there's a study out there, that if you go for a pure vegan diet, it's even healthier than a healthy mixed diet or a vegetarian diet. Did you hear about that, and what are your thoughts around this?
I'm going to turf that to you.
I'm not sure. I'm sorry, I haven't seen that study, but there is a lot of data supporting plant-based protein sources as opposed to animal-based protein sources, and to eat a somewhat calorie-reduced diet. So you know, there is one study that was published, I think, 2017 in the New England Journal of Medicine, comparing different diets. One was a low-calorie, one was a Mediterranean diet, but you know, also watching calories, a moderately calorie-reduced diet, and then a normal Western diet. And this study really showed major improvements over the short term, and they recently showed a 6-year follow-up with the strongest data from the calorie-reduced Mediterranean-based diet. I know there is data in the Nurses' Health Study when we talk about protein and what are the sources. And the data supports that plant-based proteins are associated with a lower risk of frailty, which frailty is really the clinical measure of accelerated aging. So that would be my response.
There's another question there.
Thank you very much for the great discussion. I'm sure you're aware of the blue zones concept. So for the audience, we have real-world data that in 5 areas in the world, which is Okinawa in Japan, in Greece, Italy, Costa Rica, and US, we have 5 places where majority of people live more than 100 years. And what we know from this real-world data, as Professor Linda said, is that it's the combination of first social interactions and then light activity, not going to fitness for 1 hour, and then non-processed food. So it doesn't have to do anything with vegan or vegetarian. It's about pizza and pasta, cooking together, being together, and having purpose in life. And on the other hand, we have this guy, a billionaire called Brian Johnson in US, who invests millions of his fortune to have a biological age of his 18-year-old son. So he spends 24 hours, eating 100 tablets and measuring his blood pressure and staying in hyperbaric chambers. And the question is, why does he want to live 100 years? With no people around, with no social interactions, no red wine. And we know from the conference, the latest conference of cardiologists, confirmed that the 1 glass of red wine reduces the atherosclerosis and actually good for your heart. So it's actually scientifically proven. So the question is, what's your take on blue zones, real-world data versus longevity trend, where this Brian Johnson is selling nutty pudding for 106 Swiss francs?
Who wants to answer that?
Okay, I'll start and then I'll turn it over to Heike. So I'm somewhat familiar with the blue zone concept. I've been on podia with Dan Buettner talking about that. And I think, at a high level, it's this, the learnings are that our environments, our lifestyles, are the dominant driver, not just of the length of our lives, but the health and well-being of our lives. If you dig down into those communities, and I'm sure the conclusions are accurate, but there's not a huge amount of data from any of those communities to tell you exactly what it is, although I don't think it's pizza.
Anybody from the pizza lobby here? No.
I can't speak to Ryan Johnson's motivations. Do you want to add to that?
I think you said it all. I think the blue zone learning is really that, and it's interesting that these are usually not wealthy communities that do so well, but they all have a purpose in life. They work in a community, a lot of social support, a lot of them like the Okinawa women who lost their families, and they made this team of women that would help each other out if they get sick. I mean, that's a great principle, and growing your own food, the physical activity going into that, eating it together with family and friends, but really having still a role in life as part of this community is, I think, a real key message. The single person that is spending all his life working on his biological age, maybe we learn something, but I don't see the sense in that.
Next question, please. And then Bruno.
First of all, thank you so much for this delightful conversation. My question is, what is the role of spirituality in all this journey that we are talking? Thank you.
Of what quality?
Spirituality.
The role of spirituality.
Who wants to answer the spirituality? Donna?
I pass.
Yeah, but somehow you're a specialist in reverse.
It's clearly for us.
Huh? Somebody has to have an opinion.
But there is a mindset for healthy longevity, and spirituality is one component of it. That's all I can say, Linda.
So there are probably a lot of definitions of spirituality, and I don't really know which one to grab, but the idea of having meaning in one's life is very important, and people get that in different ways. Some of it is, there are many definitions of happiness. Some of them are bacchanalian, and some of them have to do with personal meaning in one's life and how one grows. And neither is, they're not mutually exclusive. But they both are important. And interestingly, the research on how meaning evolves as people get older seems to be very weighted towards a decision about personal values. and what one believes is right, and how actually to locate that along with generosity in terms of one's community. Those are very important to well-being and perhaps adjacent to what you're thinking about in terms of spirituality. I don't know.
And what is also good about that spirituality, there is many spiritualities actually. It's not only one. There are religions and philosophies and all that. One message is, don't take yourself too serious, you know. And this is maybe a cure against late Western narcissism, where everybody thinks he is a wonder of God and behaves like this from the age of 3 on. And as we learned 20 or 40 or 60 or 100 years before, don't take yourself too serious. And there is an interesting saying, by the way, and I'm referring to that. Men fear time. Time fears the pyramids. So, have the relation between the time of a human being and the time of the world. And then it's so small. Bruno?
I found it very interesting what you said about happiness and longevity. However, for you, longevity is always birth age or chronological age. And I think there is a different concept which is very important with respect to happiness. That is felt age, gefühltes Alter.
Yes.
That is very relevant. We made a study which shows that grown-ups, 80% of grown-ups feel much younger. And surprisingly, even 20 years younger, quite a lot of them. So do you find this concept relevant for looking at the relationship between happiness and longevity?
Can I take the first? And then,
please.
So actually, there is the digital aging study in Switzerland that asks on a population basis individuals between age 70 and 80 how old they feel. And on average, men felt 18 years younger in that age group and women 12 years younger. And it fits with what we see in the Do Health study, that the Swiss participants, we have a very high percentage of healthy agers. And there is a connect between how you feel your age and your health. And that has been recently confirmed in a large population-based German study, where similarly there is a connect of how we feel in terms of age, our health, and probably really our biological age as well. And the felt age, you could basically say maybe our biological age, if this is overlapping with our health state, because usually people who feel younger, they are healthier and they have less diseases, because if you think about what makes us feel old, it's functional decline, it's limitations that we feel connected to a higher disease burden. It's very interesting. When we started Do Health, and Reto Gressig will know, our hypothesis was between the 5 countries that we were looking at, that the Mediterranean country would be the best. And this was Portugal. And we also had France, Germany, Switzerland, and Austria. And we saw, despite the same recruitment strategies in terms of age, and being healthy in the last 5 years, that in Portugal, 9% of individuals were healthy agers recruited. In Switzerland, 52%. A huge difference, and we were baffled by this finding, and we talked a lot with the team in Portugal. And one interesting argument was that people felt old when they are 65. So there is also a social component. So when you talked to the GPs and the investigators, they basically told us, in Portugal, if you hit 65, you're telling your children, now you care for me. I stopped doing things. This is your time. I feel old. I'm old now. So this is very different in Switzerland. When we have our participants in Do Health, we can hardly reach them because they constantly do things. They are active, and people don't feel, old with 65. They are teenagers, really.
Yeah, well, for better or for worse, and sometimes also for worse, then the cycle goes back to childhood when you were 90 years old or childish. Please, over there.
I have a question to Professor Fried. In your lecture that you gave this afternoon, you showed an enormous increase in the life expectancy, maybe doubling life expectancy within 100 years. And probably 100 years ago, if you asked the leading experts if that would be possible, they probably would have said, no way, going from 40 to 75 or something. So I'm asking you, would it be possible that in 100 years we would be 140, and in 200 years, 300 years old? Is this trend something that is going to continue, or is it going to stop or even drop? And if the second is going to be the case, what would stop this increase of our longevity or life expectancy? Because biomedicine seems to basically have such enormous advances and successes.
So I would, thank you for the question. I would defer to the demographers who, like Jay Olshansky and Jim Vopel, and what they would say is that there are probably limits to human longevity. Maybe it's 120 or 130 years, but probably not more than that. Perhaps not even that much. What we see, though, is that we have the opportunity to shape those years to be healthier and more vibrant ones. And in fact, the things that we're learning a lot right now. I mean, the science is very exciting about how we can actually invest in slowing the biological processes of aging, which simultaneously will also prevent disease. So I'm a New Yorker. New Yorkers like twofers, two for the price of one. And that would be a great twofer. So I think there is a lot of optimism about that, as well as a lot of sense that it's very important for the future of society that we actually can create health and healthy longevity for everyone. But it's not all biological, and probably we sound like a broken record in saying that. The biology is important, and in fact, if life expectancy goes down, which certainly the US is seeing in people with lower education who are under immense duress, that's showing us that there's a lot of opportunity to go backwards on this. Do you want to add to that?
I just want to add, I truly feel that we are all here, and it's clear healthy longevity may arise.
Of course.
Yes.
Maybe a last question, because over there. Okay. You fight each other. Very good. You are really strange. Yeah, okay.
Thank you very much for the delightful conversation. I must admit that it was a lot more fun than I expected from the title.
Sorry, you what?
It was a lot more fun than I expected from the title.
More than you expected?
More than I
From the
expected,
title.
yes, sir.
Oh,
You're right.
I have to think about that. Okay, go on.
Go to the questions. I will ask you two questions. I hope it's in Ordnung. Right. The first is, and I would like to hear about your direct or indirect experience. You know, before growing old, everyone has some idea and expectations, and you know, after getting older at that age, the question is, what surprised you, or what did you hear it was surprising for people coming to the old age, either in positive or in negative, compared to what you were thinking? So that's the first question. Second question here is, I'm a little skeptical that the governments will take any measure to, you know, for the elderly to live healthy lives or motivate them whatsoever. And that is because I believe that still the governments think that the elderly are a burden, an economic burden. You know, the cost of healthcare costs are increasing. Actually, they do increase. They need more, and therefore they are a little bit of a problem rather than a resource to society. So the question is, what could motivate governments to actually act in favor of, you know, a better status and social acceptance and living better the older age? Thank you very much.
Okay.
By the way, I love the purple too.
There's another round of work to do now here. Who wants to answer?
I'll take that.
You take that?
So I think it's important to recognize that the costs of inaction are very, very high. The costs of inaction at a societal level for governments and for business is increasing ill health with longer lives across the population. There are subsets of the population who are doing well, but for most countries, large numbers who are living longer lives with more ill health. The costs, as you said, of that ill health are high. There's also large problems in terms of productivity with people who are sick, going back to the processed food question. We're seeing a lot more overweight, diabetes, heart disease, associated with the combination of terrible diets and low physical activity, actually worsened by air pollution, interestingly. So the costs of inaction are very high. The hidden thing in there that is also a cost of inaction is that we've added more than 30 years to human life expectancy, and countries are very worried about one of the things that seems to be happening in the demographic progression is fewer children. So there's tremendous worry about loss of productivity for nations with fewer young people. Now, I'm not sanguine, but I think there are other ways to think about that. First of all, of course, 30 and 40 years ago, we were very worried about overpopulation. This is the way to solve overpopulation, is if we start having fewer children because people are optimistic about having a longer life. But what it requires is for us to rethink what having these extra 30 or 40 years means in terms of what productivity needs to be. Do we need to extend the length of our working lives? Probably. Could that be good? Perhaps. Certainly for the knowledge economy, it's probably quite good in terms of productivity. Less good if you're a manual laborer. Mm-hmm. But we need to rethink what productivity means, and it is very possible to do that in a way that can create shifts that contribute to the return on investment. We have to but we have to invest in enabling everybody to have the opportunity to be healthy in these longer lives, or none of that will happen if people are living longer lives with ill health. So we have to shift a lot of our understanding here and the way we actually think about aging, which goes to, I'll make one other point, which is that societies are very ageist. We incorporate that in our psyche almost at birth. I jokingly talked about the 6 Ds: disease, disability, dementia, decrepitude, decline, and death. That's what we think about with aging, and we think that because people have more years, that's where they are. We have to understand that the evidence completely doesn't agree with that, particularly if we invest in people being healthy. And having more education. Then the obstacle to government and corporate understanding the opportunities here is all about ageism and not having positive models for what this alternative could be. It's very hard if you're 60 or 65 or 75 or 80 to see many positive models of what an alternative could be. So we have to create those, and to do that we have to peel back the ageism of how we actually see each other.
I think that's a very good ending, good takeaway. It's a good takeaway, and we have really to make a break now. We'll continue this format now every second month here, and then we will develop it to a success story. Heike, do you agree? So,
fully agree.
Fully agree. I would like to summarize this very lively and highly interesting discussion with our more than famous guests in 5 points. First, I wrote that down during the conversations and the discussions. First, give and therefore get affection. Second, do gardening or walk a beautiful dog. Third, read a good book, Donna Leon or Fabio Lanz. Fourth, listen to good music, Deep Purple or Beethoven. And fifth, do not be worried that you have to die. It will happen anyway.
See what I told you.
Well done.
Just 1 second. We have to announce our last evenings at the SIAF for this fall semester next week. It's an absolute must for everybody because the world famous Anne Applebaum. Oh, sorry. Yeah. No. Oh. Where is Anne?
New York.
Here. Next week, Anne Applebaum. She wrote a fantastic book about autocracies and dictatorships, and it's totally fitting in our times. And if you know this super courageous lady, professor, you will be absolutely fascinated. It's a must. The date is the 20th of November. And then finally, something to go towards Christmas with Nicola Steiner, famous moderator and boss of the Zurich Literaturhaus. She is here among us. Thank you, Nicola. With the equally famous Austrian writer Raoul Schrott, and he is also totally funny and intelligent and entertaining, and he wrote a thick book, Atlas of the Universe somehow. So this is in the Literaturhaus Zurich. Sabine Sura and I are already preparing the next semester. We have some great names on the list. We check also who is been dismissed in America now after the elections. They are eager to come here when we comfort them. And anyway, again, thank you that you all have come here to this wonderful evening. And you ladies, Urs, it was an immense pleasure to have you here. Thank you very much.
You're amazing. Thank you.
You're native to being a lady.
Yeah. What on earth? No better aim.
That was fantastic.